encounter.
But no, I feel
It feels very
Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello.
Oh, sharp in there, and Gonzalo.
Hey, how we doing?
Oh, I'm doing well, Gonzalo. Thank you for asking. I'm usually the one to ask that.
Alright,
question,
okay.
so,
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that really
Gonzalo?
in his core.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Kyle, we're not going to ask you because we don't
That's
really care,
fine.
so let's
You
just
know
keep
what? I'll take that break. I'll just.
Gonzalo was a serious man today. He did tax stuff and had to raise the brightness on a certain piece of art.
work. Oh my god, I'm so tired. But this is going to be a fun one because we are talking. Lewis.
Okay, segue in. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We are
There you
talking
go.
about the Mission Impossible franchise because Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is opening on Monday, actually, here in the UK. We thought, when is a better time to talk about one of my favourite franchises, Mission Impossible? So yeah, that'll be on today's agenda. We'll be going through all the films, our favourites, our least favourites, things we love, things we don't like, you know, and just why it's so great. But first, we have a very, very brief review of Wes Anderson's latest film, Asteroid City. So, like I just said, Asteroid City was written and directed by Wes Anderson as well as Roman Coppola, who helped co-pen the screenplay. And yeah, it's got a huge stat cast, just as every other Wes Anderson film does, of Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Grace Edwards, Maya Hawke, Rupert Friend, blah blah blah. There's actually too many people on this list to go through, so I will just wrap up there. But yes, so Asteroid City. The film opens with this Bryan Cranston narration. He's hosting this sort of TV show special. It's in black and white and it's roughly the 50s or 60s. And he informs us right off the bat that Asteroid City is not real. And he tells us that it was a play written by Conrad Earp, who's played by Edward Norton. And then he goes over the making of the production and goes through the entire cast list of who will be starring in this play. And then, boom, we jump into the play, the super vibrant Asteroid City, and then the real story kicks in with Augie Steenbeck, a war photographer played by Jason Schwartzman, and his kids who end up breaking down in Asteroid City, but also just so happens that his son Woodrow, Jake Ryan, is taking part in a junior stargazing event there, and Jason Schwartzman's character is also hiding some truths about their mother. So, that's sort of the main storyline going here, but it goes off into many other side characters and vignettes. And, yes, so, Asteroid City, look, off the bat, it's vibrant, super colourful, lovely to look at. The production design is quaint and sweet in the design that gives this whole film a retro pop art feel. That's really quite unique. Everyone's doing their best to do their sort of Wes Anderson performance, which, you know, is quite distant and very straight-faced and very blunt and to the point. You know, and everyone does the Wes Anderson thing, you know, it's very, very typical of what you see in his films. But from that, look, I like Wes Anderson, I really do. I think some of his films are actually genuinely brilliant, and others I really enjoy. Although Wes Anderson's also like he's a Marmite director. Some people really like his style. Some find it really annoying. Or
I've heard people really react badly towards it, and I think because he does a thing with his movies that I actually find really interesting, and is that the film is constantly reminding you that you are watching a film. Everything about the film is trying to take you out of the film. And I find that very, very interesting because despite the film's attempts to take you out of the film, you end up becoming emotionally attached to the characters, even though you're constantly being reminded of their non-realness.
Yeah, that's his sort of, that's when Wes Anderson at his best, is when he has characters who are delivering dialogue very straight-faced, very plain, and very distant, and yet somehow over the course of the film you end up really falling for these sort of misfit characters. And I think, I mean, most of that is accentuated in Grand Budapest Hotel. Like, the way that film ends
my
is
favourite,
really sad, actually, and actually it brings a tear to your eye. and that's sort of I think that's universally kind of claimed as his masterpiece, and I don't really fall too far from that. I kind of do think it is his best film. But
what is Kai, your favorite Wes Anderson movie?
I would probably say I have a very, very kind of soft spot for Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Nice.
I mean, I do love it. I mean, Grand Budapest, like you say, is a classic. I do also love. I only recently watched it. I say recently, in the last couple of years, because they're all on Disney Plus. I think.
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
Life Aquatica?
Oh,
Yes,
Life Aquatic.
yes.
That's a great one. I
I
really love Life
really
Aquatic.
enjoyed. I actually really had a really good time with that. But I've not actually had a chance to see Asteroid City, but I have heard mixed reviews.
Yes. Well, for me, I've not seen all of his films. I've not seen his first film, and I've not seen Isle of Dogs. But out of the other, I think 8 I've seen, this to me is his weakest film. I don't think his style works here, and it's really hard to pinpoint. I don't know if it's really just boils down to the script, where I didn't really find any of it funny. And the emotional beats really just didn't work for me. It gets sort of interesting and meta towards the end, because, you know, like I said, the film opens with a TV show about the production of the show, jumping into it, and then it becomes very meta and very strange, and actually kind of what are we watching sort of thing going on. But yeah, I just found the whole thing quite empty, and it's got this whole undercurrent about this family going through grief, and yet simultaneously it's constantly getting distracted with like a whole myriad of other characters. Like Maya Hawke's character to me is like just there to be a quirky set of, like, it's like a Christian school who's on a field trip to Asteroid City, and it's just there to, I think, be comic relief, but it's just it's just so hollow. It's just pointless, and the film's just constantly doing that. It's just jumping to different groups, and I'm just like, right, okay. I mean, that's it. It just feels very, very empty to me, and it's quite ironic that you're in this desert of nothingness, because I'm like, that's kind of how I feel about this whole thing. And I'm actually surprised I've come away from a Wes Anderson film not really having much to say about it, because I didn't think, besides that, the production value is great and it looks cute and there's a great bit of stop motion animation, and I will say there's one little visual joke gag that I found funny, which I won't spoil, but yeah, I'm just quite surprised I actually have very little to say about it, because it just didn't really leave me with anything. You know, so yeah.
I was surprised with your reaction, because like even some of the what I would consider some of his weakest films that I've seen have really left me still thinking about them like weeks and months after I watch them. Even if it's not in a good way, even if it's like, oh, I don't know why they did this, why they did that. Like it's that kind of thing where like I would expect Wes Anderson to be one of those directors that leaves an impact, whether it's a good one or a bad one. Like you say, the Marmite of directors.
And I don't know, maybe if it's just we've now gotten to the point where we've seen it too much now, where it's the charm has completely worn off, and I'm like, right, this is just Wes Anderson doing his thing again. Maybe you should do something else, Wes. I don't know, but it just this didn't work for me, and yeah, I'm giving Asteroid City a 4 out of 10, and there's that's not really much going on there. So yeah, right. Well, now that is out the way, it's time to go to. This could actually be my favourite franchise, you know. I kind of don't like the word
Lewis,
franchise.
your mission, would you choose to accept it, is to rank all the Mission
Impossible. We'll get to rankings at the end of the show. Don't worry, Gonzalo. But yeah, personally, I think for the most part, minus a weird spell between numbers 2 and 3, I think Mission Impossible is a really consistent and constantly exciting franchise. I don't know about how you feel about that, Gonzalo.
See, for me, it's not the consistency that I like. I do appreciate the recent consistency in the film quality, but just the weird variety that we've gotten, and this way you can see the kind of like film landscape through these movies. Because they are not very like very short amount of span kind of like sequels where like you get it one every 2 years or every 4 years.
We'll get to that. The whole
like
production. I mean, it's like 5 years between each one, like 4 or 5 years. Huge. It's huge. Yeah.
So a lot of them, even the bad ones, for me, kind of reflect a period in time for film.
Oh yeah,
especially for like action film. So I find it a very fascinating franchise. And what I think the Mission Impossible movies managed to do is basically like pull themselves out of that matching the kind of like era and becoming their own thing, and that's why I really appreciate the new kind of films.
Well,
I will say, just for people who don't know, which I doubt there's many, but like the Mission Impossible franchise, it's basically a bunch of movies that spanned after 60s spy show. It was like, you know, there's
it was much cheesier back then. It was very much to do with gadgets
way
and
cheesier.
I mean, they still obviously keep the weird face disguises in almost every single one, where they have to rip them off. And oh my god, it's Tom Cruise is actually this guy
People
all along.
ripping off masks was like the main like super cool VFX gimmick of the old show, where they basically cut as soon as the person became like the mask and stuff. And it was really goofy but really good. And they turned that into a movie, the first Mission Impossible movie. And they did a weird thing with that first movie. I don't know what you guys think about that movie.
Quickly, I'll just ask Kyle.
And then it kind of like evolved and changed and did a lot of stuff. And now we have the kind of like consistent Mission Impossible kind of franchise that we have today.
Well, I'll just ask Kyle quickly before we get into that first film. Is you've not seen them all, Kyle? You've not seen the two lesser ones.
I've not seen 2 and 3. No.
Yes. But what would you think about them overall?
I have a weird relationship with Mission Impossible. I'm not the biggest fan of this franchise. After watching, so I've now watched recently just Rogue Nation and Fallout. I still wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of this franchise. I enjoyed Fallout a huge amount. I actually really enjoyed it as a film. I just don't think I've got the connection to these characters that I didn't really grow up on them. Like the first film I ever saw of the Mission, not my first film I ever saw, but my first Mission Impossible film was what's it called? Ghost Protocol. And that was purely because it had a 10-minute preview of The Dark Knight Rises attached to it at IMAX Games. And that's the only reason that me and my dad went to see that film.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so I have like a whole kind of thing, and I have a thing with the kind of I prefer some action to some action, which I kind of discussed with Lewis briefly over message a couple of days ago when I saw Fallout. But I'm not as a huge of a Mission Impossible fanboy as you guys are.
Well, the funny thing is, because I think the first one I ever saw was Mission Impossible 3 in cinemas, and then I didn't watch another one until Rogue Nation. And it was actually Rogue Nation which made me go back and watch them all. And then from there on, I became a really big fan, especially of that first one. So let's talk about Mission Impossible 1. Came out in
So I started with the first one.
Well, it came out in 1996 and was directed by one of the great American auteurs, Brian De Palma, which is crazy to me that Brian De Palma actually started this whole thing off, because that is just
crazy,
not the type of director I thought would start a franchise. But
no.
But also starred like John Voight and Henry Sersney, who's actually coming back in number 7, and obviously introduced Ving Rhames as Luther to the whole franchise too. And this one is now, the franchise has very much evolved from what this style was, but I tell you why I love this film so much is that whole espionage, this cool, stylish thriller. Very
full-on
psychological thriller that has very little big set pieces or action moments. It's all kind of just about who do you trust, and then it has a very dense plot, to be fair. It's probably the most complicated to follow, but I've seen it so many times. I know like the back of my hand. You know?
I've watched I had to watch it so many times to understand this plot as a kid. It's so freaking complicated, and the mask just makes
so funny
it so
because
much
actually I was showing Madeline some of these films because we're going to see Dead Reckoning together, and we obviously started off with this one the other week, and it was literally every 10 minutes. It was like, wait. She was like, wait. So I had to pause the film, and I was like, right, okay.
Understandably.
Okay. Let me tell you this.
Honestly,
There's this thing called the knock list, and the knock list has all the list of agents, and they need to get the knock list to ensure that, the arms are blah, blah, blah. I had to go through the whole plot and just explain what Tom Cruise had just said. But, to be fair, the first time you watch it, you are like, right, wait, what's going on?
What the heck?
But yeah, so...
What the heck? Especially because the way, like, the plot advances and stuff, like, it's instantly saying, hey, this is a goal, this is the MacGuffin, this is what we're doing, and just as the movie starts, like, oh no, fuck that.
It's
what
like, wait,
heck?
the first mission was a setup? What? I'm immediately hooked by that first Mission Impossible, just because of those twists and those turns, and just that great direction from Brian De Palma. But yeah, what about you, Godthal? Because you like this one too.
I love it. I think it's the most interesting one for me. Like you said, it basically gives a vibe of you can trust no one from the very get-go. It is very psychological. I think it's not the only one, but it's like the one with the most dream sequences out of all of them. There are like a surprising amount of visions and fake dreams and like waking up and suddenly that's not happening kind of moments. There's just this constant, like, from the beginning, they are accepting a mission. They are on edge. You are meeting Ethan as kind of like a member of the team, not the team lead.
Yeah, true.
And from the very start, you're kind of seeing him, like, he's surrounded by people that he trusts, people that he's clearly gone through a lot of missions with, and as soon as the mission starts, everything goes absolutely wrong, and almost everyone that he cares
but
about absolutely
it's a great subversion for the fans of the show, because the whole show, there was a crew. And even to, obviously, a later extent, when you get to, like, pretty much 3 and beyond, there's always a team. And, it completely subverts that by just going, oh, yeah, the entire team die in the first 15 minutes. It's like, oh,
not only that, but it's like... I mean, I guess spoilers for Mission Impossible 1.
That was the first 15 minutes where they all die. Yeah,
I know, but like, no, because I'm gonna spoil the
ending.
Reveal in the end.
Guys, it came out in 1996. It's older than me.
Okay.
Like, come on.
Even if you know the ending, it's still fucking good.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of making one of the named characters of the original show, one of the staple characters that people would have known about, like the people that watched the show as like young people and then went to see the movie would know this main character. Yeah, he's the bad guy of the movie. He betrays everyone. It's fucking fantastic. That scene at the restaurant with the fishbowl. Still, oh my god, the tension building on that scene, the way he's getting berated and attacked, and you see how he's getting cornered and he's trying to escape.
The cameras. I mean, that's why Brian De Palma. I mean, obviously, I've told you about how much I love Blowout. It's one of my favorite films of the 80s, and it's just Brian De Palma's direction. How low has he got that camera on them? It's like so low. But yeah, Kyle,
it's fantastic.
You watched Mission Impossible 1 for the first time recently? Am I correct? January. Okay.
I want to say it was January.
I think he's actually getting a calendar out, guys. He is.
I genuinely do.
It's just for my sake, because I struggle with dates.
I watched
so early this year.
Oh damn!
And I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
I'm gonna mildly spoil myself and totally say it's like my second favorite one because I really enjoy the simplicity.
Oh, it's
very
that's the thing.
It's the most complicated plot, but there's a part of me that kind of likes the toned downness of it being more espionage,
not as big and not as grand.
I mean that the restaurant aquarium blowing up, he almost got flooded by that water, but like a part of me actually really enjoyed because I'm a bit more of a hardcore. With like when it comes to like spy films, I'm a bit more of a hardcore espionage, Tinker Tailor Soldier spy fan than I am your man from Uncle sort of.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
I think that's the that's like the kind of amazing thing about this movie. Like the goal isn't to save the planet or the world or like like it's survival. Like at this point. It's just trying to survive and say, "Hey, I'm not the bad guy here," kind of thing. Even though it's a very complex plot, it's a very intimate kind of story.
I like that idea at the start. I have kind of issues where I sometimes feel that kind of plot points repeated a few times because they always kind of seem to be either on their own, which I guess is the point of IMF, which stands for Impossible Mission Force
yeah.
when I watched Rogue Nation. I was like, holy shit! That's the biggest plot. I honestly thought they were just 3 random letters they'd chosen, and that was it. I had
it
no
sounds
idea.
so badass, IMF.
Yeah.
It just sounds so cool. But then you actually spell it out and you're like, oh, that is the dumbest shit in the world.
Cheesy.
Yeah, that's kind of why I enjoyed the first one, because it kind of felt for me, especially since, I mean, I probably watched Ghost Protocol was the first one I watched, and probably last time I watched it was like 2012, 2013, wherever. So kind of watching this and kind of seeing from the start, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is like a intense team, and like you said, the idea of in the first 15 minutes, Emilio Estevez, who I love, I was like, oh, he's in it, and then the 15 minutes later, I was really upset. I was like,
well, of course, every Mission Impossible film is obviously has its signature moment, its signature stunt, and if here it's when they break into oh my god, I forgot it.
Langley.
Oh my. Langley. I thought it was Langley. I was like going to say Lagley. I was like
Langley.
Thank you. Which is CIA
this
headquarters.
scene has been parodied.
Oh yes.
To death.
Yeah.
It's
but
just such
like
an
in contrast to the future Mission Impossible films, what makes this stunt so amazing is the tension built around it because of how overly ridiculous this, because they have to hack into this computer to get this list, right? And so everything, the temperature is censored, it's motion censored, it's like audio censored, like everything in this room is just ridiculous. The security is so tight, right? And the whole tension around that scene is just built up brilliantly, where even the beads of sweat are dropping off, and it's like, oh my god, if that one drop of sweat hits the floor, they've been made.
That's the thing. It's
so good.
It's the more over the top, kind of dumbest security system ever, but at the same time, the tension makes it feel real.
Yeah.
You know. Also, I will like to bring a point up that we talked about in last week's episode. What the fuck happened to sweat in movies? Why do people no longer sweat in movies?
What?
Like, this movie is such a sweaty movie. Like, everyone in this movie has so much moisture on their face. And then the modern movies, they're all so nice and clean and no one's reflective and stuff. What happened to movies?
True, we watched
about it in Indiana Jones.
That's a weird thing. When Indiana Jones 5... Indiana Jones doesn't sweat. And that's pretty weird.
He doesn't sweat.
Yeah.
People aren't sweaty anymore.
Everybody in Airplane sweated. That entire film's just filled with sweaty people.
But with the making of that scene, actually, Brian De Palma was actually going to not cut it. He was going to basically, because Tom Cruise, every time he dropped down, his face just kept hitting the floor, right? And they did this like 20 times, and Brian De Palma was getting frustrated and was like, "Look, we're actually running out of time. We need to move on. We're just gonna cut it." Like, just two simple cuts, and then it just looks like we'll do it like bird's eye. It looks like you've almost hit the floor. But Tom was like, "No, I know what I need to do. I can do it. So the cut, the thing you're seeing on screen, is his last attempt, and it's the one you know when you see his face, like, please don't touch the floor.
Impossible.
Please don't touch the floor. It's because he knew if he touched the floor,
it's not acting.
De Palma was just going to cut the scene. So it's like Tom Cruise is like shitting himself because he needs to get this cut. But it works for the scene.
That's the
it works
day
absolutely
that
for the
Tom
scene.
Cruise learned that instead of acting, he could actually just be like in danger for real, and it would look very good.
Well,
and he was like, what about that? What if I do that for the rest of my life?
But yeah, it looks incredible. Like, that's how anyone on planet Earth would react if they're in that situation. So it works very well, actually.
So
but
good,
I guess let's move on to the ugly duckling of the franchise, and that is Mission Impossible 2, which came out 4 years after this in 2000, and it's the most 2000 film ever made.
The most 2000 thing in
leather
the
jackets and stupid sunglasses. And
I love the start of this movie because it's awfully like it's the worst shit in the world, but like in the best feeling. So this movie starts with some aerial shots of some beautiful like rocky landscapes. I'm guessing it's somewhere like Colorado. And suddenly it zooms in and it's Tom Cruise. I mean Ethan, but like it's Tom Cruise. Basically free climbing a thing. And you're like, is this a mission? Is this part of the thing? No, that's just what he's doing in his free time. Then he gets up, he puts on some glasses, they give him the mission, and he throws them to the camera and they explode. And that's how the movie starts. And I'm like,
and then we get a Limp Bizkit Mission Impossible 2 opening. It sure is something.
It's great. It's fucking great.
He's got the 2000s haircut, I tell movie.
Oh yeah, it's
Yes,
bad.
yes,
And this
he
one,
does.
this one,
Yes, he does.
I should say, was directed by John Woo.
Yes,
and it's
and it is a
oddly,
very
the
John
weird thing
Woo
is
movie.
John Woo is a super over the top stylistic action director.
Yes.
Like most famously did Face Off, which is absolutely brilliant. But that kind of director going into a Mission Impossible movie doesn't really work. I mean, it kind of does, but it kind of doesn't. You know, the action goes crazy at points, but overall, for me, the main takeaway I have Mission Impossible 2 is that it's quite boring. That's my personal opinion. I mean, the whole plot is centers around there's a disease. They're trying to get, you know, if this disease gets out, you know, it'll kill the whole world, sort of thing. And this sort of
there
mega
are
virus.
so many masks in this movie.
And there's constant. Everyone's wearing a mask every 2 seconds. So
Everyone's wearing a mask.
It doesn't make it any twist surprising.
If you're a Young Woo fan, do not worry. There is a slow-mo scene with white doves flying out of the air before the action starts. That's a thing. Yes. Do not worry. And it does have one of my favorite uses of masks in the whole series, where it's when so the right-hand man, like almost close to the climax of the movie, Ethan takes him down and like puts like gag on his mouth, and then puts an Ethan mask on him, and then he puts the second in command guy's mask and goes and like hands him in, and I think that's like the best thing ever, the best ever use of a mask. And that was so fucking this movie is the thing. I can't be mad at this movie. It's a terrible movie, absolutely awful movie, but it's going for something. It's not awful in the way that we're used to, where it's like just corporate and mid, and we're not trying to offend anyone. No. Yeah. This movie's going fucking out there. It's face planting against the ground, but it jumped. It made the fucking jump, you know? So I can appreciate it.
As much as I say it's boring, and look, I've got nothing against Australia, but I don't know, Sydney doesn't seem like a really exciting place to have the majority of your spy film. I'm sorry. I just, I would like to go to Sydney. I would like to go to see Australia sometime, but I don't know. Yeah. Sydney didn't seem really interesting in this film, maybe. You deserve another shot. I think it's the way
you're going to get banned from a country.
I'm sorry. It just didn't seem that interesting a place in this film.
I think it's the way the film did it, because I've seen movies with that have Sydney on as like the main thing, and it seems like a quite interesting place. I don't know. I feel like you could have done a whole chase scene on the beautiful Sydney Opera, and they kind of don't, you know. So like, it's
and like I don't know what it's just like. Look, like you're saying, Gonzalo, it does have a cool visual flair to it. There is something that puts a smile on my face when it's like Tom Cruise and he's in Spain, and you know it's like there's these flames going on. He's walking in a suit and it's slow motion, and there's dancers, and this
is the most racist portrayal of Spain I've seen since Night and Day, and it's fantastic.
Wait, another awesome. Tom Cruise film?
I love
that Tom Cruise hates
another
Spain.
Tom Cruise. Yeah. Oh my god, that movie makes a fucking encierro happen in Sevilla. It literally takes something that happens in the north of Spain and puts it right in the south, and it is the best thing to watch a bunch of bulls running through the streets of Seville like it's a thing that Spanish people do. Oh my god, I love seeing terrible portrayals of my country in media. Sorry, tangent. But I do want to highlight a stunt from this movie, because holy shit, the balls on Tom Cruise, which will be a running thing throughout this whole discussion. So there's this one fight scene at the very end where he's hand-to-hand fighting the main bad guy at a beach. After they use their motorcycles as weapons against each other, and they crash them together.
And they're absolutely fine. They're absolutely fine.
Like, again, like, it's bad, but like, holy fuck. It's just like, sure, go do it. They have a knife fight, and there is this one shot where basically the bad guy grabs a knife and tries to stab Tom Cruise, and he blocks it, and you see the basically the tip of the knife almost touching Tom Cruise's eye. So that was done for real. How they did that is they had a real knife. They tied a very hard cable towards that knife and measured it, and then the guy just had to full on stab him in the eye and see what would happen. They were hesitant about doing it, and Tom Cruise was like, "Fucking do it, let's do it. Oh my god, he was terrified because he could accidentally stab his co-actor in the frickin' eye. But they actually did that for real, and it's quite impressive in a film that's full of questionable CGI. That is actually kind of a nice one.
But look, like you were saying before this as well, there is that great, stupid, amazing ballet car scene. Where it becomes
the two
Tom
leads.
Cruise is trying to swoon on Tandy Newton's character, and their cars end up dancing. It's spinning round, and it's so weird, but it looks really cool.
It's amazing. That is a Spanish tradition. That is how we woo our women here in Spain. We do flamenco dancing, but with cars in a very precarious road. And the more precarious, the more you love them. That's how it works.
But like I said, overall, action-wise, it's actually not that impressive, and like it really lacks any sort of just something interesting about it besides John Woo's visual flares.
Fight scene. Yeah, my worst fight scene from the movie by far is the one at the lab where they have to they kind of try to replicate the whole descending fall from the first movie with they have to fall through some vents down onto a lab kind of thing. It is very clearly CG and it doesn't look good, and it doesn't really have any tension to it or anything like that. It's just overall pretty dull and pretty bad. But again, they had the balls to do a bunch of really weird shit because Jung-woo, and you gotta give him to him, honestly.
But look,
great ideas.
Do you watch the car scene?
What? I've just watched it on YouTube. Why is his hair doing that?
Because it's cool, Kyle. It's 2000s. It's 2000s. It's cool.
That was hot in the 2000s. That was hot in the 2000s.
This film made a lot of money at the time, Kyle.
Yes, this was my sister's favorite Mission Impossible when she was a teenager.
Why?
Because she was a teenager, and it was the 2000s. And also Tom Cruise is hot. I get it.
Okay, well, let's move on to Mission Impossible 3. Okay, so once again, a bizarrely huge gap between sequels. It was 6 years this film took to come out. And this one's kind of... This opens very... They do this whole sort of, we open to this scene where Tom Cruise and his wife, by the way, guys, are being tortured by Philip Seymour Hoffman. How did we get here? We rewind and we go back. Turns out
kind of thing.
Ethan Hunt now has settled down, and is he working for the IMF anymore? He seems to have a very, very quaint life and living in the suburbs, and seems to be very happy. But of course,
I mean, I say we don't know, but we know because the movie started with the media res, which I don't personally like. I think it kind of makes the movie less interesting. Because the whole idea with starting a media res is to ask some questions, make you ask questions. But if you're answering a bunch of those questions right at the start, then it's kind of sorry.
But this is interesting because this one was made by J.J. Abrams, and you can tell this is in his lens flare.
Was this straight out of Lost? Because it looks like it's straight out of Lost.
I think so. Yeah.
I think this is the last one with sweat on it.
But yeah, I mean, it has that very J.J. Abrams feeling to it, where this is sometimes a blessing and a curse depending on which film he's doing, and here it's kind of in the middle, where it's a super fast-paced. A lot is happening here. A lot of actions, super. There's so much going on. Machine guns going off left, right, and center. It's cut, lens flare, and the film has a constant rushed pace to it. And yeah, look, Mission Impossible 3 is the three. It's like a 3-star film. 3 stars out of 5 film. It's in the title, guys. It's genuinely decent. It's okay. It's one where I don't know. This
is my least favorite one.
This is your least favorite one. Movies. Okay, that's interesting.
And weirdly enough, one of my most favorite villains.
It has a really strong villain. That is a good point with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Rest in peace.
He's absolutely kills
Philip Seymour Hoffman's the villain.
Yeah,
he's good.
He's like one of those villains that feels like an unbeatable force of nature, and that interrogation scene in the jet really does still give chills. I think the villain is fantastically done. I think the fact that Tom Cruise has something to lose as personal as his family, the person he loves the most, kind of thing, really does give an extra weight to that. But it's still my least favorite movie.
It's quite interesting how we go from the first one super interesting psychological spy thriller to slow-mo, crazy John Woo, super sexy, stylistic, to then this is like, you know, Bourne era action where it's shaky cam and it's fast cuts and all that stuff.
I hate the shaky cam so much. It's aged so poorly. It does this weird, like, glitchy zoom in thing as well.
Yeah.
I do not like it one bit. It makes me dizzy. It also has pretty disgusting colors throughout most of the film. There's a lot of night scenes, and they look like shit. I don't like it.
There is something about Mission Impossible 3 that is definitely the most generic in the franchise. They're just really kind of... This could be any very much, franchise, really, you know?
If you take a scene out of this one without Ethan Hunt and tell me it's a Bourne film, I would not be able to tell the difference, you know? And but at the same time, again, they did do a bunch of really impressive stunts for this one. The bridge collapse scene.
That was good.
That was pretty good. I think the fact that it was daytime really helped because no shitty color. But yeah, it's the least memorable film as well for me. There's that really cool camera shot where he's running down the buildings in, I don't know where the fuck he was when he's trying to look for his wife.
Is that Shanghai? Towards the end of the film.
I don't remember. I've only seen this movie twice. It's my least favorite. I really don't like it.
But you think it's that cool about where he's running? He's got his Tom Cruise run is down to perfection here, where he's running across in the streets, and that's like a whole one take thing. Looks pretty good. But yeah, Gothal, like you, is probably the most forgettable. It's probably the most generic. And I watched this maybe about a year ago again, and I was like, yeah, it's fine.
It's also the grossest, especially given how stylistic the rest of the movies are. Like, it really has a lot of like grunge and shit.
I mean, it does feel like, you know, a lot of it, like,
and like a lot of,
you know, it's like a lot of it's like happening in like a warehouses and stuff like that, and it's like sort of dirty, but also kind of fits how sadistic the villain is, I think.
It does. Again, weirdly enough, my least favorite one of my favorite villains, most memorable one.
And also introduces Simon Pegg's Benji to the franchise.
It does, which is good because I fucking love him in this franchise. So that's why I really like the next one we'll be talking about.
But yeah, okay, well let's get on to the next one then. So Mission Impossible 4 or Mission Impossible.
We're
done away with numbers
now.
We're
back to the Kyle ones.
We're cooler now. We're cooler. We're done away with numbers. This is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. It is directed by Brad Bird. In his first live action film, which is bizarre that this is the one they chose to start with. But
the fact that he did such a good movie as his first live action one is also kind of incredible.
But this one kind of
spoilers for what I think about this one.
This one has a really cool opening where it's like, you know, we got to break Ethan Hunt out of jail, and then we got to infiltrate the Kremlin, and then the Kremlin explodes, and it looks like Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt is behind it. And once again, he has to clear the name of the IMF. He has to go rogue as always, and clear the IMF. But yeah, so Gonzalo, I want you to start on this one because I think I have a lot less to say about Ghost Protocol than you.
Yes. So this is my favorite movie for a lot of reasons. For me, this movie establishes the tone that a lot of the consequent movies that are fantastic follows on. This establishes a lot of the style and the cinematic nature that we will see later Mission Impossible movies. And also, a thing that this does that I really appreciate is it really harkens back to the first movie in a lot of ways without adding repetition. So one of my least favorite things from the second one is when they literally try to replicate the falling down a shaft and try not to die scene from the first movie. This one does that, but without being literal. So you are putting again these group of heroes trying to assemble under pressure because they are being framed for something they didn't do and they need to prove their innocence. Very much like in the first movie, you're also having this whole kind of like, who can I trust kind of thing. It's not as pronounced, but it's kind of there, and you get one of my favorite stunts in the whole Mission Impossible franchise, which is the Burj Khalifa climb, which incredible. I also think plays with tension brilliantly. Yes. It's also that's what I say by like harkening back to the first one, that Burj Khalifa stunt really echoes the hanging from the ceiling one from the first movie,
but dialed up to
without
like
being
a
literal
billion.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, I really, really like this movie. It manages to somehow reboot the franchise without pretending like previous films didn't exist.
Yes,
Which is another thing I really do appreciate. Like, it's like, oh yeah, we're kind of starting over, but without really starting over. It carries on the whole story of Ethan having a wife from the previous one. We have characters from all the way back to the first movie to the third one showing up as part of the team. And like, it just really feels like a movie that appreciated its predecessors, even though it was trying to do something different.
Well,
I really like.
Well, Kyle, what about you?
Yes.
Well, do you remember this one much?
Yeah, I remember being like, yeah, this is a film. I wasn't like.
But let's keep in mind, this is what 14-year-old Kyle's review.
Yeah,
we're getting here. Okay.
Yeah, it would have been past May 14. I would have been 14. I would think.
Damn.
2012.
No, 2011.
2011. Oh, 13. Sorry, 13.
I feel old now.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
I have the thing with. This is kind of. Especially this film, I think it begins my minor issue with this franchise. Well, not the franchise, but just my preference of what I prefer action. And this is what I was kind of talking with Lewis, where I don't get blown away by these Tom Cruise solo stunts.
I don't get it, but okay.
I know. It's full of opinion, so
you should go on another podcast called Super Unwanted Opinions, because that's what this is right now. Okay, carry on.
Because like I was saying like this, I was like, if Top Gun was just one plane flying around, I don't think everybody would love it as much as it's like a group of people.
Definitely.
And especially in the later films, I do enjoy the more choreographed, especially there's some amazing chase scenes in the next couple of films. But yeah, for a part of me, I'm kind of like, I'm just paying to have Tom Cruise do some adrenaline junkie stuff that he wants to do.
Yeah, but it's not just that. There is a story and there's a purpose behind it. And there's a lot of tension added to it.
I watch it.
His glove malfunctions, Kyle. He's hanging on by one hand.
Lewis, let him finish.
Having a spidey issue. No, but I'm joking. But like, I for me, because like how I prefer my spy films, I still like in my idea that in the first film. Of like the sweat, I found that more tense than I know it sounds mental because he's hanging off the tallest building in the world.
It's true because the thing is the smaller scale makes it that you can put yourself in his shoes a lot more.
Yeah, this is getting to the point
you can't
where
really
like,
imagine what you would be doing if you were hanging from the Burj Khalifa. Over a floor. Trying not to sweat on the floor.
No, I get it.
I can't see myself.
But also, this is sort of I'll do it because
I have vertigo as well. So like this movie triggers me so hard every time anyone gets close to from the very moment they take that glass out and they're just hanging around
and
that
they have the camera go forward.
Dying.
They literally have the camera back here. Behind Tom Cruise, and then they slowly pan over and then look down. So anyone afraid of heights is like, I'm out.
I am dead. I am so dead. So I love it. So it really generally triggers my adrenaline.
Gonzalo, this is your favorite franchise, and I really do like Ghost Protocol. It's not my favorite. But I have such a great appreciation for what it did, because this is the one that saved the franchise. If this Mission Impossible 3 didn't do well, right, and it's quite surprising that if Mission Impossible 3 did the numbers that it did back then, now there wouldn't have been a Mission Impossible 4. But because it was Tom Cruise, and they were like, fine, you have one last shot to make us some money here, right? And so Paramount did it, right? And like you're saying, it's a soft reboot in many ways. They're done with the number titles. It's kind of hinted at because this isn't called Mission Impossible 4. And you kind of have Jeremy Renner is introduced. I know they kind of wanted to maybe push Tom Cruise out eventually because he was getting older. Put Jeremy Renner in. That backfired. Actually, that's what Christopher McQuarrie, who actually supervised the script on this, went, this is your number one problem here. Don't try and make Jeremy Renner the main character. Tom Cruise the main character. So he, made script changes there. But thank God he did. And of course, a lot of the film centers around that Burj Khalifa scene, which it's if whatever you want, it's incredible. And And this is, look, I understand your point, Kyle, and I get where you're coming from. And look, if more ensemble
I'm not saying
action,
it's not an impressive film.
I know. And like,
no, I get it.
You like, when there's more going on and when there's more stuntmen and women involved, it gets more interesting.
It's also like, Kai, you do seem to gravitate as well to like more personal and emotional kind of scenes. Like whenever there's like a more grounded kind of like the action scene is about the relationship between people or something like that, it does really seem to hit you a lot further. And this is more like
this will kind of especially Fallout, where one of my favorite scenes in Fallout has nothing to do with action at all. And that kind of goes back to what you say that I think like.
But for me, it's because we're witnessing, and there's no CGI as well, so we're witnessing a man do something that pretty much none of us could ever do, or really maybe want to do. And it also becomes superhuman to an extent, where it's like, this is genuinely astonishing that we're watching a man do this, while also performing as someone else. We're not just watching a real guy do a stunt. There's a drone camera. It's purposely framed, and people put a lot of effort to make this look cinematic, and that's why a lot of film critics and whatnot compare Tom Cruise as the modern Buster Keaton, because he's doing these stunts that are so astounding and just terrifying that he's doing it for our entertainment, and staying in character while doing it all is incredible. So that's my take.
For me, I think an amazing thing that this movie did that pushed the rest of the franchise forward is that it brought the impossible back into Mission Impossible. I feel like the whole idea of the IMF as posed in the first movie was the whole idea that, hey, they will do very complicated shit that has a very minimal amount of a chance to work, and they will get through that just because there is no other way of doing it. This is not brute forcing ourselves into getting somewhere. This is not like we're tearing the walls down and doing whatever it takes. It's like there's supposed to be a covert organization. Therefore, there's a lot more emphasis on doing a lot of incredibly stupid shit just because the other way of doing it would be too obvious and let people know that you're there. Another thing that I love that this movie does, and I think it's brilliant, it cuts them off. You see what they can do with like the IMF resources. And then, like with the beginning of the Kremlin and all that stuff, it shows you what IMF resources can do. And then they're like, I'm going to cut you out. You no longer have access to any of these resources. You have to improvise. It brings kind of like that human, low-tech kind of idea of espionage. And this movie is constantly fucking with their tech. From the Kremlin scene where the little screen doesn't work correctly.
The hallway camera thing.
Yes, with the hallway camera thing. From like the gloves, the fact that the mask machine breaks halfway through trying to get a thing, and like it's just pushing them to be like, what can the limits of human abilities. And I think that really goes hand in hand with the idea of these great stunts, because it's not just, hey, we're just getting these things. I was recently rewatching some of the Ocean's movies, and there's moments there where they just make up a fucking technology that doesn't exist to get themselves out of a like writing plot hole kind of thing. They're like, oh yeah, we have holograms in this universe now. Yeah, it's fine. It's lame. It's stupid. It sucks. Cool technology is cool when we understand its limitations, and I think this is something.
And they absolutely move forward with that definitely in the next two as well. And I will say this one also furthers the team element. I mean, this is the only one without Ving Rhames. This is the one he isn't in, but he's in all the rest of them. And Simon Pegg gets to go out in the field, and Benji gets more of a spotlight in this one.
He shows up as a cameo at the end, though.
I like the introduction of Jeremy Renner's character, although it was they pushed him to the side in the rewrites. I like him, and I like him more in Rogue Nation, which we're about to get to. But I will say I do have one minor gripe with Mission Impossible 4, and it's the climax is because we have the Burj Khalifa scene in the middle, and the finale is kind of just meh, because the final fight
It's
is in a
not as
car
powerful,
garage.
yeah.
Like it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of
It's not as powerful as and like as visually thing, but
Yeah.
I do like the finale for one reason, and it's we see Ethan literally throwing himself and fucking mutilating himself in order to complete the mission, and I think that defines his character for the rest of the fucking series. It's like I won't put others at risk, but I'm gonna put myself at all the risk. It's kind of his defining trait for the rest of the thing, which he didn't really have that much of a character before this. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really have like that much of an idea of who Ethan was. He's very much defined as a very flawed individual who does not value their life in the fucking slightest.
No.
And will just like that fight scene with the crazy doctor guy where he just throws himself from one height of a building to the next over and over, like slamming against cars and shit just so he can press the button. It's great.
Well, let's get on to the
that.
next one.
Yeah.
So the next one is Mr. Impossible Rogue Nation, which is the first directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who is now pretty much the lead director and the producer.
I was going to say he was a supervisor in the previous one, right?
He was, like I said, he was a script supervisor, and now this is sort of his. He'd only directed a couple films before this, which is quite amazing, actually. He only did that Jack Reacher film with Tom Cruise and The Way of the Gun. But and this is like his third film, which is mad when you think about it. So Rogue...
it does showcase a lot of like how important the team is, because a lot of the people that worked in Ghost Protocol moved on to work on the later films. Yeah. It's like they found their clique and their people and their way of producing these movies during Ghost Protocol, and they've stuck to it, and it's a brilliant fucking team.
So, and this one, basically the team and Ethan Hunt have been searching for this, what they call the anti-IMF, the syndicate operation, which is basically a force of ex-agents from across the world who basically have come together and, are now terrorizing the world and have somehow unlimited resources to do so, and are seemed to be led by the Solomon Lane, who has some sort of overarching plan. So off the bat, I only ever saw Rogue Nation once, and that was in cinemas in 2015, and I watched it again on Sunday, actually, for the first time in years. And man, I fucking had a blast with Rogue Nation. I really do. I think this is a solid, great action film. I think it's really, really good. And I don't know. I think for this, I think I do prefer this one to Ghost Protocol. I think it's just the pace of it feels a bit stronger. It kind of flows from each sort of set piece to the next. Ethan's doesn't really have a team like he does in Ghost Protocol. He is by himself for like half the film.
Most of the movie.
But it was interesting. What about you, Kyle? I'm going to come to you on this one. What were your thoughts on Rogue Nation? Sorry.
What are my thoughts? I enjoyed it. I'm trying to think here because I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
I've only watched this one like 1.5 times.
I know. So I loved. Right, I'm gonna think of the things I loved. The villain Solomon, I really enjoyed him. I kind of thought his kind of really almost very sinister presence was actually kind of creepy to me.
He's
and also
creepy.
the way he talks. The standout for me, and I'm gonna forget her name in a second because it's just gone in my head.
What, Rebecca Ferguson?
Yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah. She's
me,
brilliant. She's great.
Yeah,
I love her character, and I thought for me that's probably a part of her. Like her character kind of saved. Like I was just so.
Oh, she's a major part of it. Yeah.
And especially in this one and in the next one, which I didn't realize. I had no idea. I was.
And she's in the one after that too, Kyle. She's still here.
Which is why I was kind of like excited, and I did like the idea of this kind of syndicate and the kind of the anti-IMF, and especially I quite liked the fact that Jeremy Renner was. Is he become the chief of this in the IMF this time?
I actually can't really remember what his title is. He's sort of representative of the IMF
because
for sure.
There's some good scenes between him and Alec Baldwin in the courtroom where he's trying to defend what they do, and I kind of liked that aspect that the CIA are kind of going, these guys are old-fashioned. Like, the days of the Impossible Mystery Force, that was a shocker and a half. The idea that they go in and, blow everything up and, kind of reminded me of a Civil War where they're kind of showing, like, the aftermath of the Kremlin, and it's just a Jeremy Renner there. I was
all
like,
the collateral damage.
So that I enjoyed, because I like the idea that the modern day was kind of catching up to this organization, and it added
which again is kind of like a theme carried from the previous film. This whole idea of like, technology's not on their side.
I enjoyed that. I'm trying to. I'm. Do you know what? It's really hard. I watched them right beside each other, and I'm trying to remember which one's Fallout and which one was Rogue Nation. This is so difficult.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, I really enjoyed the helicopter scene. I was like, no, that's Fallout. That's Fallout. That's not Rogue Nation. Keep going. I will remember.
Okay, well, Gonzalo, what are your thoughts on Rogue Nation?
See, I did not enjoy this one as much as I did Ghost Protocol, but I will agree. Like, the side character, like the new side character in this one was a godsend. I think, because I liked a lot of the side characters introduced in Ghost Protocol. She was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Her dynamic with Ethan, that whole kind of like equals, kind of competing but also allies kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. She has the best kind of like fucking attitude. Like, from the get go, you kind of like her, even though she is like an opposing force for much of the beginning of the movie. And we see that coming back and forth and stuff like that.
For me, weirdly enough, right, Rogue Nation got plenty of critical praise and it's still a very, very beloved film, but I don't know why. I just think it's somehow underrated, because I feel like Ghost Protocol and Fallout take the spotlight, and for me, Rogue Nation is really good. And I just think, from an action point of view, look, we open up with that incredible stunt of Tom Cruise hanging out the side of an airplane, which he did 8 times and caused really a lot of damage to his body, strapping to himself to the side of a plane going 5,000 feet in the air is pretty nuts. And then we get to this astounding opera sequence, which I do not think is, talked about enough, where
that's my favorite part of the whole movie. The opera sequence,
it's like
is
for me the action and the way the film is structured is it's sophisticated. That's the word I'm going to use for Rogue Nation. It's sophisticated.
It's
like,
sophisticated. Yeah.
Christopher McQuarrie had only this is his 3rd or 4th film, and that is like so incredibly well directed. The way he cuts from we have all these players going on. You've got Benji, you've got Ethan, you've got Elsa, and you've got the henchman, and somehow the entire geography of the opera makes sense. You know who's going after who. You know who's about to shoot who. Oh my God, there's a gun and a flute. The lightings are going up and down. It's just so well done. You're watching this beautiful opera take place and him going through all the sets. It's genius. I think it's genius.
I'm gonna say one thing, and I might get hate for this, but for me, Rogue Nation, and then after it, Fallout, their tone and aesthetic is what, to me, I think James Bond movies wish they could be.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. This is like
this sequence feels like it should be in a James Bond film. Yeah.
But it's somehow better than any James Bond film I've ever seen. Like, this feels like what they dreamed they could be. This is so like clean and smooth, and at the same time you still get that kind of like punchiness and realness and threat and tension. I think the thing for me about Rogue Nation is that it nailed the style. It walked so Fallout could fly. And if we get like 10 billion movies at the level of quality of this one, I would be a very happy man. I know that's not in the cards, but it just made it feel like Mission Impossible was always a consistent franchise.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But like you're saying, Rebecca Ferguson's also is a great introduction. I think
she's
the entire Morocco stuff, the motorbike chase and the car chase. The car chase for me especially, the way it just goes through these streets, and then we have this whole thing. Ethan has literally just been resuscitated, and then Benji's like, "Are you sure you can drive?" And he's like, "Yeah." Well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? I just chatting nonsense. And there's this maneuver they do where it's like the car. He does a handbrake turn, so the car basically actually does a full spin, and then he knocks 2 motorcyclists off, and it's all just done in one shot. And I'm like, that's fucking brilliant. And that motorbike chase is just like terrifying. Oh my god.
Yeah, the motorbike chases I found was just incredible. One action scene that I kind of felt was ruined by its surroundings. I didn't realise the water scene was actually real, because I thought it looked kind of... The background looked a bit too CGI in some scenes. Because I can understand they're trying to do the kind of servery room, kind of and obviously you can't build it. And I just, in my head...
But they did build it. That's the thing.
But there's definitely some parts
the arm is CGI.
Is it the arm?
The arm is CGI,
like,
but the room... I watched it and
I was like...
Is a kind of a set,
I was like, is this, like, I was kind of confused because the arm really took it out of me. I was like, what was it? I mean, obviously, I got to Google he had these dreads.
See, something like that happens
really
to
cool,
me in the next movie.
I actually had to, like, go re-watch it, because I was kind of like, my first time watching it, because that CGI kind of threw me, I was like, is this underwater?
Also, it is weird, because these movies have some of the best practical work in the industry. And that does really make whenever there's any CG added kind of feel weird, just because of how incredibly practical heavy these movies are.
Yeah. But what I like about the sort of the third act of Rogue Nation is, and it's sort of different, sort of contrast to where I had problems with the Ghost Protocol one, where it's just, I don't know, it doesn't feel very special. This one, okay, we've done all the crazy action stuff really in the first 2/3, so we're gonna dial it back, and it goes to trying to outsmart their opponent and outwit them. And I really like that. It's going back like to
the scene
roots,
where they're sitting down together.
Yeah, it's going back to the mask stuff. It's going to having to figure out how do we do this, and it's like that whole thing where Ethan Hunt destroys the what is it? He basically needs this passcode to get into the list of all the finances and the money, and then then Tom Cruise destroys that. It's like, oh, you need to keep me alive because I'm the one who's memorized it. I was like, that's great. I love all that stuff. You know, it's really putting Benji on the line. It's great.
It felt a bit more espionage, like more spying than it was pure action. That sequence where they're where Ali Baldwin discovered he basically loves Tom Cruise because he kind of realised Ethan Hunt is a genius.
Yeah,
I found that scene really
great.
Quite.
Ali Baldwin is really good in this film.
The Austrian Prime Minister or somebody, and he like the mask switches.
Oh, it's just it's just the I think it's just the UK Prime Minister. Yeah. Well, it's the guy who runs British intelligence. But Rogue Nation, man, it's just, for me, it's just a really perfectly paced action blockbuster with some incredible set pieces. But now it's time to come to the magnum opus, the legend.
That's where, the Austrian Prime Minister's in this one.
No, the Austrian Prime Minister is in Rogue Nation. He's at the opera scene.
I can't remember.
He's getting confused. See, that is true. That is the thing with these movies. Also, they have so many action scenes and so many plots, and the plots are increasingly more complicated and twisty and shit, that sometimes I forget there's just 2. I thought there were more. You know, you're like remembering. You're like, wait, is that the same movie as that? As the same movie as that?
I watched these back to back. I'm literally like so confused.
But for me, Fallout has visually is quite distinct in terms of just, I don't know, the way it looks. But so Mission Impossible Fallout. Now, I've talked about this film many, many times in the show and cited it as one of the greatest action films ever produced in America, and yep, it sure is. It's definitely one of the best action films in the entire 21st century.
Okay.
It's so
What's your
genius.
Favorite part of this movie?
What's my favorite part? My favorite set piece?
Favorite part of this
I don't know.
Yes.
The entire all of France. The whole country. Yes, the whole country. All of France. It's fucking brilliant. It's so...
I have like 5 seconds that are my favorite out of the entire Mission Impossible franchise. And
you're a sick man, and you need help.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay.
Do you know what those 5 seconds are?
Okay, what are those 5 seconds?
Do you know what those 5 seconds? When Henry Cavill comes out of that bathroom thing and cocks his fist.
So wait, I'm confused.
The best 5 seconds of the film. Yeah.
What do you have problems with this film action-wise that you don't think it's incredibly well made.
I love this movie. I think this movie is incredible. I don't have many issues with this movie.
What the hell are you
only
talking
issue
about?
with this-
Oh, actually, I've only got 5 seconds I think are memorable in this film.
No. I'm just those are the peak 5
Right,
seconds.
right,
No.
okay.
It's a brilliant movie. It's a fantastic
you're gonna
movie.
have the hottest take
my
ever.
biggest issue. My biggest issue with the movie is just they
here
add
we
too
go.
many
Here it
rain
comes.
clouds on the Halo jump scene, and that kind of ruins the Halo
Okay,
jump
good. Look,
scene for me.
you and I have
That's
difference of
about it.
opinion on that, right? But I'm going to ask Kyle, because Kyle's not given his opinion on this Halo jump
Okay,
scene.
okay.
So for
Halo
anyone who
jump
hasn't seen the film or doesn't know what we're talking about, the film's first action set piece is a Halo jump with Henry Cavill, who's not in the suit, by the way. He obviously didn't
gets
do it.
knocked out, and then he gets up again. He's
yes.
never gonna.
Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill's character jump out this plane and have to basically infiltrate this nightclub in Paris. And they added a lightning storm effect for the first half of the sequence, I guess.
Yes.
Because not even the first half actually, because the main
it's
tension.
Like the second,
Because
it's
the
like
main
of
point
it.
of the scene is
The
to
middle
resuscitate
bit.
Henry Cavill before they
Yes,
land.
that part's great.
So they
That part's
do the lightning storm. Anyway, Kyle, what did you
Yeah.
make of that scene? Because I've not heard your opinion on it.
I didn't like the lightning.
You didn't like lightning, okay?
I thought
Fuck yeah.
I saw the
Team
behind the
knows how to win.
scenes of the
Yeah.
Halo jump before, and
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that looks amazing. And I think
Yeah.
they did it in the light. If I'm right in saying, or
Yep.
they shot some of it in. Like,
They shot
I
it.
think I saw,
They
like,
shot.
scenes.
Yeah, they shot some of it. In, some of it's sunset for sure. They did most of it
Yeah.
sunset.
And then I was like, that first bit, like, holy shit, that's so cool. And then it turns to this CGI storm, and I'm like, aww.
See,
But
Lewis is
I
you
don't-
guys
I
are
don't- I
so
wouldn't say- I
over
wouldn't say-
dramatic. It's the lightning storm is literally to
don't-
set up Henry Cavill getting knocked out,
didn't say I
and
did- I
then
didn't
we
say-
proceed
I
That is
with
didn't
the
the
scene.
one
ruined
flaw
it.
I
didn't
I
say
have
it
with
ruined
this
it.
movie.
I just was a
Yeah.
bit like.
Eh,
disappointed.
myth.
Like,
Alright,
I
okay,
will say
you
the
guys
thing
go
that
enjoy
makes
Fast
me-
and Furious 9 and 10 and you play one of the greatest thing ever made. There you go. You know, I mean, this is
Lewis,
the sickness
Lewis,
I'm hearing on the mic right now.
Lewis. We're just saying that it miffs us a little bit that there was CG clouds
But you have to
added on
understand,
such a
they
beautiful
also
scene.
had to kind of do that because they shot it over a desert.
Yes, but the moments where they put Paris down there, it still looks great.
Yes.
It's
It
the
does,
cloud scene
yeah, you would-
that
you
look
would
a
say
little
that.
bit iffy. That's
I
the
would
only
think they
thing.
are
That's
hill
the only
jumping
thing.
over Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they are hello jumping over Paris, and again, the sequence itself, it's great. It's just the CG clouds kind of miff it a little bit. This is like a stain on a pristine canvas. This is what we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
we're
Anyway,
not
so
shit.
we're
Okay,
getting
we
worked
love
up.
this
We're getting
movie.
worked about this, but
movie's
look,
great, Lewis.
when we get
It's
into
so
France and we have this, and this is what I kind of love about Fallout,
Yeah.
right? It's because, like I said, it's got this weird. I don't really have to describe it. It's got this visual quality that looks different to 4 and 5, where there's kind of a darkness to it, and it seems like you're in this sort of
Yeah.
weird, dreamy haze about
There's
it.
a-
And they
there's a
kind of
Fallout.
carry on like the sort of surrealist element to it, because when you land in
Yeah.
like so much of it doesn't make sense. You go into this nightclub which has thousands of people in it, and yet the bathroom is pristine and white and no one enters.
Yes,
It's very
yes.
strange. And then you have this
It
weird
also-
mirror door, and then there's this whole vision of this basically this heist going wrong and people getting slaughtered.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
film opens with a nuclear bomb and Solomon Lane
Yeah.
doing
That's it. Yeah.
the vows at his wedding. It's really
they
strange.
they recreate the start, like they echo the start of the first movie, which I love, with the whole lying to a person in a room, then revealing that it was all a lie. But instead of masks in this one, it's like they made up a room and a whole news thing and stuff.
Oh, that's such a good scene.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
such
great
good
scene.
I love that.
They also bring back the Ethan's visions and nightmares for this
exactly,
one.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I think,
It's
you know,
fucking
when
great.
you know there's some, this is actually going up another level to this is prestige action
Yeah.
filmmaking, is actually, see when Ethan is in the safe house at the very beginning of the film, and he gets the message basically telling him his mission, and then it self-destructs, and then the smoke comes across and fades into the next scene. I'm like, fucking hell, that's seamless and that's beautiful. But yeah, like I was saying, the whole Paris fight, the nightclub fight scene, took 3 weeks to film that fight scene, and they were in extreme agony and pain by the end of it. But it looks amazing.
God.
Then you get the chase scene, which I don't logistically I don't understand how they made that. It's astounding.
Me neither.
You know?
honestly.
I agree. And
That
that's probably why it's my favorite action set piece in that film.
Yeah.
Because
See,
because
that-
you said
that
like,
chase-
logistically,
yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I
He's
can't
gone
compare it.
round
It's in fucking
the Arc of
Paris.
Triomphe the wrong way in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
They shut
Which
people
I
got
love
fired
that
because they didn't show up
because
to work
that
that
is-
day because they couldn't get to work, and it was all for this film, and it was worth it.
That is the worst roundabout in the world, by the way. That is the worst roundabout in the world because it has priority on the wrong thing. The people on the inside of the roundabout have priority getting out over the people on the outside of the roundabout. That is a hellish road. If you drive and you're in Paris, avoid that
French,
for all hell.
you.
So I'm so glad that I loved also seeing that they also did like a fucking fight scene on that thing on John Wick 4.
I really want to rewatch the John Wick.
The John Wick one, there is a
the-
little bit of CGI.
Mission Impossible will be better.
Yeah, there's a lot of CGI sprinkled into the John Wick.
Oh,
one
it's
for
it's a very different use of it.
Yeah.
John Wick 4 basically has it as like an endless level with cars coming in and hitting the different
bad
people that
guys,
come
yeah.
over and over and over and over. Because it's like that point where the whole of the underground is going after him kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Mission Impossible is that like trying to escape.
This is interesting because I didn't see this film in cinemas. I remember Lewis did. And I remember Lewis came into our work a few days after. I had a conversation with one of our colleagues at the time, Stephen. Yeah. And then you were like, "Oh, it was brilliant." Stephen went, "Paris geography was off."
Yeah,
and then you were like
the fuck over Spain geography. They don't give a fuck about Paris geography in this one. Yeah.
Weirdly though, I will say,
I just remember you going, "But it was incredible." He's like, "That's not where the arc of is."
No, it wasn't the chase scene that was the problem. It was like
yeah.
a conversation scene because he meets the White Widow outside somewhere, and then he goes and meets Rebecca
they
Ferguson.
bring back
and it doesn't make
Max.
sense. What?
White Widow, great character. They bring back Max from the first movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much, like, trying to connect these storylines going on in these later movies. It's amazing. I was really happy that Max's daughter came in, and also the casting was incredible because she literally looks like if it was his daughter. Sorry.
But yeah, once you carry on from that, the entire Parasite piece, and I love the car he's driving, and I love the scene where things come to a head and that police officer gets shot. And then
that is so good.
It's so tense, and Tom Cruise wakes out, and then there's just that element of care.
Because you've just gone.
You've
just gone through this whole thing. That's the thing. You've just gone through this whole thing of like prestige, kind of like this fancy car scene kind of stuff, and then suddenly you get, and it's like, oh shit, this is the real world. People's lives are really at stake. Holy shit, what the fuck are they going to do now? And I love that whole scene with the policewoman. Like, that is so fucking good.
You have them, like,
so
standing there with Solomon in a bag, and it's kind of like
it's a little joke, and then it becomes serious.
And then it becomes so tense.
Yeah. It's great. And then, boom, the whole chase scene through London, the entire twist about... a twist. The trailers made it very clear that Henry Cavill was the villain in this, but anyway.
The movie itself makes it very clear. Like, my mom did not watch the trailer and she was like, "Is he the bad guy?" And we were like, "No."
But you have that incredible chase scene through London, where of course everyone knows Tom Cruise broke his ankle during jumping between buildings. And
I love that they keep that kind of thing where like it takes like he has a bit of a limp during a little, like that moment in the scene before he
just
starts
when he's
running.
wandering off. Yeah.
I don't blame him.
And then
they had to start production for so fucking long.
The final set
That
piece
was...
with the helicopters and him climbing that rope and then letting himself go and then catching himself on the rope. And him just driving, doing these crazy corkscrews in the helicopter. And I watched the making of that recently, and I was like, because it was basically they had to basically make special rigs to ensure that Tom Cruise was always in frame. And it's just like the amount of effort. He had to learn to drive a helicopter, fly a helicopter, just to.
He did,
and they were just like
a really hard helicopter maneuver as well, like the little corkscrew.
Yeah, the corkscrew.
He actually did the piloting thing for that.
And Christopher McQuarrie is probably going to have a heart attack sooner than Tom Cruise when they're making this stuff, because his reactions every time Tom Cruise does something dangerous is like, "Yeah, all right, we got it. Please don't do that again."
Can I ask like a
he signed the deal with the devil.
A logistic question here, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to, but how much do we think it is like 50-50 with directing? With like, because I feel like Tom Cruise has so much say.
No, Tom Cruise absolutely.
does.
Tom Cruise
He does.
has a lot of. He's a producer on it as well.
He's a producer.
If you watch the make of that thing, it's quite scary watching him work, actually. He's really intense, and he's like, this is how we're going to do it. He pretty much choreographs a lot of it. And obviously Chris McCoy's there to sort of what looks best. He directs, Tom Cruise directs it as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
it feels like he's like
at
a
what
like
point
a
do you genuinely think he should get
choreography
some
director
credit?
kind of thing,
Like
you know?
a genuinely like a co-director credit because of how much.
Nah, I mean,
So obviously,
He's got the producer one.
yeah, he's got the producer one, and that's what producers do. Though producers are there to also meant to choreograph, help things out.
I mean, that's
problem
the thing.
solve.
It's confusing because there is that two types.
I say that. I mean,
there's two types of
producers. That's what good
yeah.
producers do. That's what they're there to do.
There's two types of producers. There's putting in the money producers, and then I'm actually making sure that the thing works
I'm gonna help
we keep on budget and the production goes well kind of producers. So there's the ones that work and there's the ones that don't.
Yeah,
he's the one that works.
You have the producer that goes, maybe she should be a Kenobi. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the kind of producer. That's definitely the kind of producer.
The worst types of producers.
Yeah, but I've heard that basically, like at some point, I think it was during Ghost Protocol, they had a lot of issues with safety and a lot of issues with actual like production companies wanting to finance the movie, especially when it came to the whole kind of like oh damn it, what's the word? Seguro. When like you assure something, you put like a assurance, like the companies that put money in case something goes wrong, kind of thing. They had a lot of issues with those because of the kind of stunts they were doing, and at some point Tom Cruise was like, fuck it, I'm just financing it myself, so I don't need to worry about that. And he basically covers his own stunts at this point, he does. Just so he can
look, when we get to Dead Reckoning, well, actually, I won't be here for
and thankfully he seems like from the cast talking and stuff like that, he does seem like he is very responsible whenever it's someone else's like who's the stunt the person and stuff like that. You know, he does seem to take the stunts very seriously.
When you guys talk about Dead Reckoning next week, which I sadly won't be here for, that breaks my heart, but we're talking about the budget of that film. That's got the same budget of like $250 to $290 million, which ballooned because of COVID and stuff, but
that's half a movie.
When you got to the infamous recording of Tom Cruise on set shouting at those two people who weren't following the COVID guidelines, do you remember this?
It's justified.
I do not remember this.
You don't remember this?
I would. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Basically, because
berating someone for not following safety guidelines.
This was in 2020, and it was like Mission Impossible 7 was the first film to go back into production during the pandemic, and he obviously had that whole outburst, which he's obviously been very apologetic about since. And because if someone was caught breaking COVID restrictions, especially during the first year of the pandemic, the whole thing would have been shut down and people would have been sent home, people would have lost their jobs and so on and so forth. So that's why he has that whole very angry rant. It's like he's like, I'm trying to save the industry. And also because Tom Cruise puts a lot of his own money into this stuff, so it's like
he does.
Yeah.
We don't like people shouting at people.
I think he was right. What he was saying was true, with the fact that they were the ones keeping that industry afloat. Imagine if nothing happened. Like, imagine if they went, we can't film films at all during lockdown. What the fuck would have happened to the film industry?
Yeah, and that was the thing, because
there's a lot of people that like literally live project to project, and when the projects dry out, they dry out.
And that set a precedent, obviously, going forward after Mission Impossible did it. Spider-Man went ahead and filmed through lockdown, and so on and so forth, and so many other big films did it.
How awesome would it be? They had like a body. Like a body representing their specific line of work that would support them in times when there's issues and there's a lack of money, and would also fight for their rights and represent them against the people.
I don't know, Gonzalez. This sounds a bit, communist to me. It sounds a bit union.
Yeah, it sounds too communist. You're right. This sounds too much like a union. Let's not have that. Yeah, you're right.
We support the unions here on Unwanted Opinion. Just in case they need our support.
We do. Fucking hell. We fucking do. Yeah. If there were more unions, people
the strikes just
would not have been at risk.
Because the top producer in Hollywood. Man, we listen to this podcast, and there's these guys who just they support the unions, and now so do we. But look, before we finish up here, it's time for obligatory rankings of these films. I feel like I just ranted and shouted about Fallout of how much I loved it.
You really love this movie. Do I have to say anything about Fallout? I love the character dynamics. It's a great fucking film.
It's cool.
It's gorgeous, and it's way more metaphorical than it needed
to
be.
Love that.
Brings Solomon back. Brings back villains.
I love them not wasting villains and just keeping them cooking.
Yeah. I
that.
really loved what they did with Solomon in this one. The way they made him that like underlying thread that we know what he's capable of, and like as a continuation and a comeback. I loved the idea itself of like actually, again, developing Ethan's character and that whole thing where like he will not put his team at risk of dying willingly.
Yeah,
if he
that
knows
is
that they
becoming
can't do it.
a big theme throughout these films, and it's
big thing.
It looks
big
in the
thing.
trailers for Dead Reckoning. This seems to be the big thing for that one. Is like he really wants to keep his team. He'll risk his life to save them, and that carries on here.
Such a great theme, great theme, because it is the kind of actual question, character question that is interesting to ask. Like asking your character, "Hey, do you want to kill this innocent person, and do you not?" is the dumbest fucking question you could ask. But asking a character, "Hey, is it worth the lives of millions to save the life of the people that you care about and love?"
I think this is a purposeful narrative decision as well, because it harkens back to Ethan is traumatized from the very first moments of the first film, where he watched his team die, and now that's kind of become his obsession in all these films. But
again, it feels to me that having Tom Cruise be a part of the writing process and the production process has really allowed, like, sometimes you get back directors who don't give a shit about a franchise when you have like a franchise film that's really long and stuff. People who don't do their homework and like try to understand the characters and stuff. I feel like the fact that he's been acting as Ethan for as long a time as he has, and that he cares as much for the characters he does, has really allowed there to be this overarching character arc for Ethan throughout the entirety of his movies. And I don't think we would have gotten that depth if it would have been just number 5 in the franchise. And
well, okay, let's round off this by ranking them. Kyle, I'm going to come to you first, because you've got the easiest job. You've not seen them all.
I know.
You're missing 2, so that's fine.
Probably put Ghost Protocol last.
Okay.
I'm then a bit like, right. Probably for me, it's gonna go Rogue Nation, the first one, Fallout, because I really like the hardcore espionage of the first film.
Yeah,
but you can't even argue Fallout. If Fallout's not your number one, you're a fucking idiot. That's
nice.
Gonzalo,
That's nice.
You go.
I'll have to change my ranking. I don't want to be a fucking idiot. This is a very close call, because I hold all of these movies in very high regard. So when I'm saying first, second, third, and fourth, they're like inches apart from each other. For me, my favorite one is Ghost Protocol. I really like the themes in this movie. I really like the execution, and the fact that it lifted the franchise is something that I value a lot. I would say second to that is the peak of the franchise, in my opinion, which is Fallout, until we see the movie next week, hopefully. But yeah, I freaking love Fallout. And again, inches away is the first movie, which started it all, and I love how fucking different it is from the rest. I would put Rogue Nation, number 4, which very close as well. I need to rewatch Rogue Nation. I watched it 1.5 times, because I did the whole rewatching all the movies, and for some reason I stopped midway through Rogue Nation. I think I had some homework to do or some shit.
Bad man.
But yeah, so like I need to rewatch it. It might go up and down, but that's my 4th one. And then way farther down, like way further down than that, it's the second film. It's so dumb, but I enjoy it. And then way further down than that.
Further down than that, okay.
Which I think is... Yeah, because I don't even enjoy watching the third film. If I were to walk into a room and you were watching Mission Impossible 2, I'd sit down and hang around. If you were watching Mission Impossible 3, I'd grab my food and keep walking.
Okay, I see. Well,
so, yeah.
Very good. Well, my least favourite is number 2. Like I said, dull, boring. John Woo's style's funny, but whatever. Number 3, pretty generic after that. And then in 4th place, I'm going number 4, Ghost Protocol. Yeah. Sorry, Gonzalo. Number 3, I'm going Rogue Nation. Number 2, I'm going Mission Impossible 1. And of course, Fallout, one of my favourite action films of all time. And hopefully Dead Reckoning next week takes that top spot. Yeah. Because, look, that'll round off today's episode. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me. Thank you, Gonzalo.
Oh, it's been really fun.
And thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome.
But yes, next week's episode, Gonzalo and Kyle will be taking the reins for a full spoiler-free and spoiler-filled review of Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning Part 1. That is a mouthful. I will hopefully have one short 2-minute voice note I can send you guys when I'm in the airport. But
I will say one thing about this movie already before going in that I appreciate a lot. It's called Part 1 very clearly. I've seen 2 amazing movies that did not advertise themselves as Part 1s, and that caught me a little bit of guard. I'm talking about Dune and Spider-Verse. I'm glad that they're like Part 1.
Yes,
Spider-Verse was originally titled Part 1, so
I know, but they changed the title, which is still kind of.
But so that will be on next week's episode. So, look, we just gave our opinion on the Mission Impossible franchise and Asteroid City.
Opinion.
But at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.